Welcome to the April edition of the Charlotte Amateur Radio Society Zoom workshop. Tonight's topic is Introduction to FT8, WSJT-X. We have two presenters tonight, Craig, W3GF, and Dave, K3FHP. So this is Whiskey 6 BFK Dennis. I'll be handing it off to Craig.
All right, good evening, everybody. This is my first attendance on Zoom, and I'll say it from the outset, I don't consider myself an FT8 expert, but I do operate FT8 most of the time. Not sure what the level of everybody, where they are coming in here, but I guess everybody knows it's a digital mode, 16-bit, 15-second transmissions, and it works out to be about a 5 word per minute rate of data transfer. Anyway, having said that, I did finally find out, getting ready for this, what the FT stands for, and that's Frank Taylor, and the 8 is FSK. Excuse me, yeah, 8 FSK. So anyway, that being said, I'm not sure quite exactly where we'd like to proceed from now, but for me, the trickiest part, and it really wasn't that difficult, was downloading the software, WSJT-X, and getting it set up. Once I had all the right drivers, everything loaded into Windows 10 just fine. And it's been functioning pretty well ever since then, with the example of a few little glitches that pop up every now and then. I'm running on a TS890, and it was pretty easy for me to set up because it's got the sound card and everything all programmed, and all I had to do is plug in the serial port from the computer once the program was up and running, and fill in the proper settings, and that's it. So I know that Dave and Dave, 3FHP and 4CC are the tech experts. So I'm not sure what the format is here. So let me just throw it over to Dave.
Well, I'll tell you what, Craig, tell us a little bit about, do you know sort of the background of WSJT-X and the FT8? Do you kind of know anything about Joe Taylor and that group?
I haven't delved really deep into that, but two guys are Steve Frank and Joe Taylor, hence the name WSJT-X. And they released the first one in 2017. And at this point, it's probably the fastest growing digital mode, or perhaps the mode, period. It's easy to use, doesn't require a lot, and it's a great gateway to moving to a derivative JS8, which does allow full keyboard to keyboard transfer. And that's, of course, communication. Of course, that's the problem with FT8, if you want to call it a problem. The price for having such a low noise mode is that you don't have much in the way of data to be transferred. I think you can configure one message of 14 letters that you can send at some point. But JS8, on the other hand, is full keyboard to keyboard, very similar to WSJT-X. That's for another day. But I've been really happy with JT8. Excuse me, FT8.
And if you wanted to find the software, how do you go about locating the software to download?
I just went to the WSJT-X, excuse me, to the website, downloaded the appropriate program, and installed the app. It was really pretty simple. They do tell you you may need to get some other drivers. They provide where to get that. So that's pretty simple. I'm covering what
Yeah. So would you how many contacts would you say you've made using FT8 mode?
FT8, I'm up to 3,200 contacts in 137 countries. That's one of the great things about FT8, and that the weak signal mode is fantastic. I hang out on 6 meters a lot, and there are times when you can't hear anything above the noise, but yet we're getting solid decodes and can have QSOs with FT8. It's pretty amazing. As a matter of fact, 6 meters for the past couple of months, starting around 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, has been open in South America, probably with some transact along with whatever other propagation is out there, but not a problem at all. So it's,
Have you run any of the FT4 mode?
I have run FT4. It's fast and furious. Keeping up with it, if it's a busy day, is the hardest thing. But the QSOs are, up and over in a second.
Do you find as many people are operating on FT4 as FT8?
Not nearly as many. There are some, but if FT8 is where most of the action is, and it's 6 meters on down. There's a lot on there. 12 meters has been real good too.
What radio and antenna configuration are you running?
I've got a TS890 and I've got a flagpole vertical, 23 feet, and probably 80 feet of RG8X feed line to it.
Yeah,
it's been working out pretty well. I don't have the place for a bigger antenna. I'd love to have a bigger antenna system, but there's just no room for it. I'm envy. I saw K1TO had a QSO with a ZL station, New Zealand station, the other night, and made me green with envy because he's got quite a nice setup.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, super. Any other modes that come with that software that you run on
the software? I don't. Well, there are a bunch of other modes. But I don't recall them offhand without actually looking. There are a bunch of them on there. FT4. I don't want to make it.
Yeah, Whisper and so forth. Yeah, very good. All right, anything else you want to share with the group, and then we can turn it over to QRP Dave?
Yeah, not at the moment. I think Dave's probably in a better place to deal with some of the technical details. I can get back in with some of the kinks and things that I run to when it's appropriate. Any questions along as far as operation is concerned, can jump in on that.
That's great. Be very helpful. So thanks for kicking this off for us.
Thanks.
All right, Dave, we interrupted you when you were going to share. Go ahead and give it a shot. See if you can share for us.
Hey, by the way,
left to get off.
Before he gets back on, one of the things I did come across I wanted to share is if you go to W3GF.com, there's a really good basic explanation of FT8, along with a bunch of other nice stuff that on historical and different other modes.
Excellent. Okay. There you are, Dave. Should be a bulldog, but we'll take a badger.
Okay, everybody hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Okay. Very good. Well, as it was just mentioned a second ago, what the heck is this thing and why should we do it in the first place? Digital modes have been around for a long time. CW was the first digital mode. RTTY was the good old standard, which is still around, which is still a lot of fun, and it's got a magical sound to it that it's almost mesmerizing and relaxing, and those folks have been around it a lot. It's the way we do it, it's relaxing. It's not so good when you have to run 16 channels of it on one carrier. That makes it a little tougher. But of course, we know AM, there's still some AM out there. Single sideband came around, FM, RTTY. But on the digital modes, you ask the question, what other modes come on that software? And there are a pile of them. There's like 14, 18 different modes. Many are very specialized. Joe Taylor, way back, he as a physicist, he had a Nobel Prize for discovering gravitational fields from pulsars, but he actually was involved with some of the software, communication software on these space long-range space probes like Voyager, how they can continue to send back readable signals. And that's where these JT modes actually originated from. JT65 was a very popular mode. Decade and a half or more ago, I used to run JT65. It's a little bit more robust than JT FT8, but it was used primarily for moon bounce. It was a big moon bounce signal. You know, you lose a lot of energy going to the moon and back, and back in the day, you needed a lot of power and a lot of antenna to be able to run moon bounce. Back in the 60s, I had a buddy that did moon bounce on 2 meters, and he was running a homebrew 800-watt amplifier and a 64-element array. Now you could do with a single long john, really long 2-meter one, or a single pair, and 200 watts. So the gear is approved, and the software has really made a big difference. So JT65 was there. What's the problem with JT65? Why did they want to come out with something else that worked? Well, each transmission, or over as we call it, was 2 minutes long. You had like 2 whole minutes for JT65, rather 1 whole minute for JT65. Our other one, our beacon mode, which is Whisper. You may have heard of Whisper. You can transmit Whisper and look and see where you're picked up. You receive it, other people's, and you send that reception on the internet to WhisperNet, and they do the same for you. So you can send out signals on all the different bands and see where you're heard and how strong you are. Now, Whisper is it's a low power mode. You're considered a war criminal if you run over 5 watts. Most of the guys on there are running 100 milliwatts or less. I've seen people from the other side of the world running 10 milliwatts. So that's a very, very robust signal. But FT8 was meant to be faster, and let's face it, kind of contesty. And it has evolved over the couple of years it's been out to be more of a contest mode. They have added additional features which help it accommodate certain, not every, but a few contests out there. Some of the hardcore contesters are not happy about FT8. They think it's cheating. The problem is it's fun while you're doing it. As long as it's fun, just keep doing it. It is a legal contact, so you can run the world with it if you want. Get all your awards. A few of the contests don't allow it, but a lot of the contests don't allow a lot of different modes. So now, though, we only have to go 15 seconds. Well, that was still too long because they wanted to be able to compete with the speed that RTTY does for digital contests. Then that's why they came out with FT4, which cut about 1/3 of the signal time down, and they lost a little bit of sensitivity, but it's still very, very good compared to any other mode. So let's go. Those are the different modes that are in there, including it's a very nice little calibration mode, frequency calibration mode that you can use with WWV to calibrate your equipment and actually do frequency tests. So that's a quick look at this thing. Now, why do they call it FT8? Well, it's for Steve Franke and Joe Taylor, and the 8 is for the 8 tones that are used. It uses 8 tones. They're spaced 6.25 hertz, not kilohertz, 6.25 hertz apart, and they run them one at a time. The advantage of running single tones rather than like Olivia, where you're running 8 or 16 tones at the same time, yes, it makes it a lot slower to get your transmission across, but it is very, very robust when trying to repel the effects of Doppler, which occurs frequently, QSB, a lot of other bad stuff that happens when your signals skip through the ionosphere. Also, your exact frequency isn't that important because it gets its part of its where it's at from where it hears the tones coming through. So it's a pretty good signal, and it does not require a very linear transmitter. You can run a Class D modulator for those of you into the electronics, because you don't have to be worry about the audio intermod, because you only have one tone at a time. Okay, so we have 15-second transmit times compared to JT. It's much faster than JT65. Now, why the heck are we going to do this in the first place? Well, here's the magic. This one picture is what you show all your friends. If they, why the heck are we doing this? Any of this digital stuff? I just want to talk on my radio. Well, right now we're at the peak of the sunspot cycle. It really doesn't matter quite as much. Although on bad days, you know, we like lately, you can see a big difference. But it takes a positive plus 10 dB. I would say it's closer to 12 dB to get a decent single sideband signal. That's the signal and noise ratio. That's how much stronger your signal has to be in the background. CW, you can do a good, well, they're being exaggerating there too. I think CW is only good, really good for most people down to about -10. You have to be really, really good CW op to get -15, but -10, that's still, what's the difference? Anybody know what's the difference in how much more signal is 10 plus 10 dB and -10 dB? How many times more signal do you have to make that the same? Anybody want to guess? How much is 20 dB? How much is 10 dB?
Be 100 times.
Right. That would be 100 times. 20 dB is 100 times. You need 100 times stronger signal on single sideband to make a communication than you need on CW. Now you start to listen, understand why CW is such a good mode. It's very simple and it works really well. FT8, on the other hand, you can do a -21, and I would say that is conservative. I've done a -25 on FT8, had been received at that level and completed a contact. But the difference between -21 and +10 is 1,000. 1,000th of the signal is necessary to complete an FT8 contact than a single sideband contact. And during the bad parts of the sunspot cycle, that is really important if you want to have any fun at all on the radio. So that's the reason why we do this. It's not just some strange thing for weirdos that like to do weird stuff on the radio. There is a real reason. Whisper, by the way, on the other hand, which we use for beaconing, is -31, and I've seen them down to -35 receptions on Whisper, and that's like a 10,000th of a signal that you need for a single sideband. So it just, your mind can hardly believe that. Now, what these dBs mean, it's not like some people would think it's just a straight signal that many dB. They're looking at 2,500 hertz bandwidth, because that's where a single sideband signal usually occupies. So you're running 2,500 hertz, and within then, that's the signal to noise ratio that these signals will be received at. Now we know doubling the power gives you 3 dB, and if you play with these signals, particularly not. Well, I like to do it on JS8 because it's really quick to have it work. You can demand from a single station, you can demand him give you a report back. You change your power, and it comes frightfully close sometimes with a couple of dB to the power ratio that you actually change. It's fascinating. Now, 31 dB, as we said, between a sideband signal and an FT8 signal Okay, that's 1,000. So that means if you ran 1 watt on FT8, that would be the same as running 1,000 watts on single sideband to get the same communication. Hard to believe, but true. So when you're running, I know people like to run a lot of power, but if you're running 20 watts on FT8, that's like running 20 kW. That would be a lot of power, a lot of power. So that's the reason we like these digital modes. That's what they're good for. Right now, you can run a lot of good sideband with low power. Get out there with 5, 10 watts and run single sideband. But that's not going to happen forever. As was mentioned before, it's gotten very popular. In the first year in 2017, when FT8 came out, these show the percentage of average radioactivity by mode. Okay. Blue is CW. It's always been pretty high. The orange is phone. FT8 is gray. That was down here that was green down here when it first came out. And then all of a sudden, boom. And then it became over 50% of the activity. And today, it's even more. In contests, that's where all the signals are. And whether you like it or not, if where the signals are is where you got to be if you're going to be in a contest. So as I said before, each 15-second block supports 13 characters. It transmits for 12.5 seconds about, and then it decodes for 2.5. That time where it's sitting there, after it you stop transmitting, it takes only 2.5 seconds to decode. And think about it. It's not just decoding the one signal you're tuned to. It decodes and displays all the signals in the band pass. That's a lot of crunching, a lot of number crunching, a lot of decoding. So yes, the effective data rate's 5 words a minute, but 5 words a minute where before you could get 0 words a minute is pretty good. This same sensitivity, this same modem per se is used on JS8, but the communications protocol is completely different. So you get different amount of characters, different functions that other than this, but the modem is the same. So the sensitivity is the same. And what they do is they run these 15-second blocks consecutively. They kind of stack them on top of each other so you can get a whole sentence out. And there are speeds other than the 15-second speed, which can get you the job done in a third of the time. Anyway, so we're looking at the speed. These are and the whole bandwidth is 50 hertz. That's another reason why we get that super strong effective strength of the signal. When you're running single sideband, you're running 30 to 40 watts average power if you're running a 100-watt transmitter. So your 100-watt radio is really a 40-watt, 30, 40-watt radio. In the average over the 2.7 kilohertz of your bandwidth. That's why they're trying to do with these other, you've heard of ESSB and the super thing that the K4s and some of them have in them to try to crunch and pack more audio into your bandwidth to try to make up for that. But otherwise, you're running 30, 35 watts on a 100-watt radio. If you're running 20 watts on FT8, you're crunching that 20 watts into a 50 hertz bandwidth. Instead of 2.7 kilohertz, you're crunching it into 50 hertz. So that's where your energy goes. That's where your advantage is. Your power density is way, way up there. I'm going to go through the math of that of the decodes. Let's go into setting up. That's what you're interested in. It is a synchronous mode in that it expects signals to start right at a certain instant. Now, you don't have to be at a millisecond it's got some slack. I've received people well at 1.5 seconds off. And you know that because every one of these that's displayed, as we'll see in a bit on the screen, it tells you how far off in time everybody is from you. So if everybody there seems to be the same amount off and it's really high, it's you that are probably off. So if you're not getting anybody and it shows 1.5 seconds, 2.5 seconds off in the DT column, there's a DT column, then probably that's the reason you're not getting any contacts, is because your clock is off. So how do you synchronize your clock? Well, there are a couple of ways to do it. You can get pretty close. If you practice, you can get pretty close by going off the air and listening to WWV. Where do we find WWV? What frequencies are they on? Anybody?
25 megahertz, 10 megahertz, 5 megahertz.
They're 2.5, 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25 megahertz. And depending on the time of day, you receive some of those pretty good, some of them not so well. So you can listen to that, and it'll click and it'll go right at the second. If you set your computer to set your time and a really quick boom right on the second, you could probably get close enough to be able to make contacts. Now, if you don't want to try to play that game and you have internet access, that's the key. You can use some programs to do that. There are a couple of programs that will do that. And she lists them here somewhere. They were listed. I like to use it as an old time one that I'm told does not work well with Windows 11, but I like Dimension 4. If you just type Dimension 4 in your address box up on top of your browser, that thing will pop up and you can download that. And I like it because it works. It can let you choose any time standard station across the world. There's dozens of them. Even within the United States, you can pick WWV, you can pick the Naval Observatory in Washington, you can pick University of Florida. I mean, there are all kinds of time standards, rubidium time standards on the air. There's another one which Dave likes to use. It's a net time, and that's supposed to be pretty good. That's when Microsoft looks at, and so time is important. You should have a time standard on your program to be able to adjust your computer clock to the right time. Another thing you're going to have to know to enter into the setup is your grid square. Everybody know their 6-digit grid square? Yes, no? You should know your 6-digit grid square. You're going to need to do that. Okay. So this is what your screen looks like. Here's the clock we were talking about. This is the one that Dave, I think, talks about. Meinberg NTP. That's another popular clock setup. And that, by the way, that's a picture of what it looks like on a K3 or a KX3 for that matter. It tells you to look for 5 bars of ALC. And you can see it goes all the way out to here. It goes all the way up to 6 or 7. But ideally it says it's 5. Look in your radio manual. I know that's a sacrilege amongst ham radio operators, but look in your in your manual. Some of the old radio manuals won't have it in there because they came out before a lot of these digital modes, but your new one should tell you what it wants to see. Okay, that's I was looking. Oh, here's another hint. Here, this is what I was showing you before. They put that in all these different things, show you what the signal strengths are going to be for the various modes. If you're running this and you cough or something happens in there and you see your ALC bump, that's a hint that you may not have your mic turned off and your signal coming from the right place. You don't want to have background noise and stuff coming from your room or your computer for that matter. You'll want these system signals coming through. because that's not going to help you being heard at the other end. So that's a remember, you want the level on your receive side. There's a receive indicator on the left that's going to give you where the signals are, and you want those things to be right around in here. You don't want it, if it goes too high, it'll start turning red, but you don't want to overload the program. It's not your radio you're overloading. You're overloading the program's ability, the aided to accept and process the analog data. You're going to hit settings and open it up, and maybe I'll just do that. And you'll see all the different setups for how to make your radio work with the program. Now, once you can figure all these out, the good thing is you can use the same technique and the same concepts for every digital program out there. So you're kind of getting something for nothing here. That's my live FT8 right now on 10 meters. Yeah, I'm going to try these couple of things that I have here. I'm going to see if we can find a spot to download some of this stuff into our group's IO. That will help out. But this is the I don't know if it's big enough for everybody. Does everybody can see all the letters and everything on there? Is it big enough?
That's great.
Looks good,
I don't
Dave.
know how to make it bigger, but
No, it works fine. Keep
Okay.
going. It does great.
all right. Okay. Actually, you can see here, this guy, that's a Hawaii station right there. Now, the colors you're seeing pop up have different meanings. There are ways for you you don't have to have them there. You can get rid of them in the setup, but and you can have as many different ones you want, but you can set them up to give you a hint. Now, the one you want, it gives you like a red or an orange when you're the one being called. So you're going to want to know if your call sign appears in there. So that's one you're going to need. The greens are usually set up for CQ. A US station calling CQ. But you can set those up. We'll go through that in a second. Is this going too long this way, or just what you guys want to hear?
No, you're doing
Yes,
great.
no.
Show us how to make it work.
Okay. Okay. I want to see how I can. Okay. Let me go here. What a this guy is. That zoom bar on the top is blocking my okay. Let's say we're gonna start operate. We want to set up our machine. We go to file, and we go down to settings. And settings is going to bring us up this neat little window right here. There are a lot of different parts of it, so we'll start at general. The general part. One thing you need to do is put in your call sign. There's a caveat if you're on all these, on JS8 and this. Believe it or not, there are non-hams using this stuff in non-ham bands. Like in the free banders, the CBers, the guys in between CB and 10 meters. Remember, if you decide to play with this outside the ham bands, take your call sign out of there before you do that. That's a big hint. JS8 was on 27,246 on the free band, and you can there's so much of that activity. You can see it if you look on PSK Reporter. You wonder what's all that bright green, not the darker green, the bright green dots are all 11 meters. And say that can't be right. There can't be hundreds of 11. There's 11. Yes, there are. They're out there. Okay, so take your call sign out. But if you're going to play ham radio, you put your call sign in. Call sign, grid square. Remember, I asked you what your grid square was. Okay. 6-digit grid square. a lot of things will say default, will call. You want to I like to display the distance, but if you think it takes up too much room on your screen, you can tell it not to do that. Some people like to have a blank line between decoding periods. That might help for some folks, but they're all different choices to make it look better for you. Show DXEC and grid work before status. So these are different things to help you see this better. Now, behavior. That's not your behavior. That's the program's behavior. Some people want the monitor off at startup. They don't want it to start receiving, because if you start receiving, you start sending out reports. I don't think that necessarily. I leave it off. Monitor returns to last used frequency. You may or may not want to do that. That double click. Now, this is one I like. Or if you see a signal you like, one of these stations out here, if you just go over there and double click on them, that will turn on your transmit and put his information in the send box. So some people don't want to do that, but I think that's they like to just click on them to activate them and then enable the transmit separately. But I use that double click on. Disable transmit after sending 73. That can be helpful. If you don't, it should go back out and it'll start sending CQ right away again on the same frequency. So these are all different. Allow transmit frequency to change while transmitting. Now, you say, well, why would you want to change your frequency while transmitting? So let's say you start a couple of seconds into your transmit. Remember, the reason this is robust is it resends the same data several times during that 15-second cycle. It's redundant. So, but if you start to transmit and all of a sudden you see your signal is right on top of where a big signal just was before you hit click, you want to move that to a blank spot, which is the next biggest hint that I can give you in FT8 or JS8. Put your signal where the others are not. Now, that may seem like common sense, but it doesn't happen a lot of times. You look and see where their activity is, and you look for places where there's no activity. It's not like sideband where you zero beat somebody. You don't really want to be right on the other station's frequency. Why? Because it will decode and communicate just as well if it hears your signal anywhere in the 2.5 or 3 kilohertz bandpass. If it can hear you anywhere in there, it's going to communicate with you. So you don't have to be on their frequency. So you want to be at a place where other people aren't. Rules of war, Sung Sing. Fight the enemy where he is not. So we might want to change the frequency. I use multiple decodes. I don't use single decode. And that's the under this general. But the key here is setting up is radio. How we set up our radio. Now, you can operate this without radio control. You don't have to control your radio with the programming to make this work. You just need the audio in and out. And then you can trick the radio by just putting the radio into Vox, and it will work. I know this because I did this for quite a few years. But if you have your radio able to be controlled by cat control, or what do you ICOM guys call it? CIV? Anyway, that's cat control, computer automated transmit, and you can run it in cat. But this program gives you a choice. You can pick your radio. You can go by, this is a long line, this is a long list of stations. It even has 10 tech in there. It's got radios I've never heard of before. And Kenwood's in there. And lo and behold, it even has ICOM. What more could you want? So you click on the one you wanted, and that'll go up here. Then it will use that set of controls, that codes to control that your radio. Now, the other thing you have to know is what virtual COM port or COM port you're using to control. Now you say, no, I've got a USB in the back. You may have a USB in the back. That USB is going to translate and come out into a COM port, and you've got to know what that number is. So you can use your device manager in your computer. Okay, do you right click on the little window down there and look up to device manager and look at your serials, or you can cheat a little and you just go in here and see which ones are available. Obviously, if it's not available, it's not going to work. Now, if none of them are available, then you got to go back to the computer and find out why your radio is not talking to your computer. But you find the one that works. Next is baud rate. Now, the actual rate is not important. What is important is that your radio and the computer program are all at the same speed. I use slower speeds. You can use up, like people use 3700, you use as high as you want. I mean, there are all kinds of choices there that will speed up the response of the frequencies and things like that. On the other hand, it takes more churning of your computer. Your computer is working harder because even when you're not doing anything, it's still polling and functioning at that speed. Also, I use several different radios. Some of them are older, some of the portable. The KX3, I use a lower speed. I use 9600 because that makes the internal computer in the KX3 run slower at sampling, and it actually uses a little less battery power. But I just use 9600 for everything. You can use any of those speeds there, but make sure your serial port in your computer with your device manager and your source and your radio are the same. Yeah, I've got my RS-232 rate at 9600. And I've got my cat rated at 9600. Everybody see that? It's in the picture, not on the main screen. It's in my little picture where QRP Dave is. Look over there.
Yep.
Okay. So that matches. That will now match. I should get back to the other thing. And those are the main settings for that. There's another. You will have the equivalent on your radio, depending on the brand. It's going to look somewhat similar. And I'm looking for the data one in my, looking through my menu. There are a lot of different settings for, you may want to run, there's a data box gain also. There's box gain and data box gain. And depending on, sometimes it may be easier to key a radio rather than using the pure cat control, to use the data box, use box as a mode to key the radio and to transmit. As you'll see, there are settings for that on most radios. So there's a box for the sideband, and there's a box for actually CWN data. And last bit, if I can find them here. All right. Okay. Here we have, very important for your radio, you'll have the equivalent of this. Data input select. You want it to say, if you're connecting it to a connector on the back, you need it to say that, so it won't try to use the front microphone connections for your data. Also, if your program is going to call for it, you'll see it there back on the screen in a minute on the WSJT-X. PTT select is RTS, ready to send. You can make it DTR, but if you make it RTS, then you know you can make it RTS to send on the other end on the program. And finally, data port select as USB. On this radio, on the FT991, you need to check your manual to see what you're going to have on your radio. But there should be something equivalent. So we saw in the radio, I know it's a little kludgy and cumbersome, but I wanted to show the matching things between the radio and the program. Following that through will help you out if you have troubles. You may run it through and it'll work great the first time. And then after your Windows update, or you took it apart to take it someplace and put it back together again and try to use it, it doesn't work. So that's when you're gonna have to hunt around in there. So we've got our speed, we've got our port. I want to use cat control, and that's why I've selected 991, because it knows the right controls to send to him. And I use defaults down the line here. No, and I use fake it for the split. And then to test it, to see if it's working, I'll hit test cat down at the bottom. And if it's good, you'll get that green. If it's not good, you won't get that green. So that means the control is working well. Push to talk. I want to know if the push to talk works, it'll turn red and my transmitter will go on, which it did. So that's the test for that. And that means I can control the frequencies and et cetera with my program. Now, we're in radio. Next important, obviously, is going to be audio. We need to get our signals from the program in and out of the radio. So, if you're using almost anything, you're going to be going through what they call an audio codec. Everybody know what a codec is? It's for coder decoder. It takes analog signals and makes them digital or digital analog. Now, there's a cheating way to do this. If you don't have any interfaces and you want to get on the air with something, no computer control, no anything, you can take the audio. For example, let's say you wanted to monitor. You get the audio out of your speaker, out of your headphone jack, plug it into the mic input of your computer, and you can copy FT8. That's all you need. You don't need anything else. Now, and if you can get a connection to the mic input, either in the back or the front, you'll be setting the frequency manually yourself, but it will still work. You're going to open up this window, and you're going to have choices here of where you want the sources. Here we're going to use our codec, but you see here the webcam appears, and the internal one of the computers appear. So we want to have the codec, and they should be the same for receiving and transmitting. If you have more than one radio or codec on there at a time, note the number that they're using on both ends so that you can pick out the right one. Okay. TX macros. They call them macros. They're really, I don't really call them macros. They're really stored messages. You can make any number of stored messages, not very long ones though, because you only get 13 characters per transmission. But usually they're different forms. You'll see them on there. Sometimes people want to get cute. Instead of the standard tank 73, good luck, you can make equivalents that are slightly different to give some personality and individuality to it. Some people use it to make other types of communication signals, but you put all these things here. See, if it was CQ POTA, some equivalent of that. That's what you do. You store them here, you type it here, and you put add, and they will appear. And you put add, and it appears, and then you can put that in as a little one of those little special messages at the bottom, and rather than the standard formatted messages, it's a non-standard message you can send. Reporting is important. You want to a couple things here. You prompt me to log QSO. So it'll pop up, a box will pop up with a completed QSO in a little log box. It'll give the signal reports, the call signs, the grids, etc. It'll automatically log that and not pop up like that. But if you want to look at it, maybe modify it, change it, there may be an error. I like to put prompt to log. The box will pop up. You can make changes in it, and then you can click to log. Those are all, if you log automatically for contests only, et cetera, et cetera. So these are different. Now down here is the nitty gritty. Network services. You always want to click to enable to PSK reporter spotting. That way, anything you come in, all these signals you see popping up here and being received with the signal strength and everything, I'm reporting that to PSK reporter. So those stations can look out and they'll see me as having heard them and give them the signal report that I heard them at. It's a great tool for propagation, a great tool, and it works vice versa. So you click this, you click the TCP IP connection. This is already set there. You don't generally have to modify it any. Now you can also log it in, make it log into your logger and use standard logging hookups there. If you click there, and then depending on what program you're using, it's going to use a different port. So you have to use the port for whatever one you're using. Frequencies. The different modes have different frequencies, and you can set them up. You're doing a right click will let you set up the mode and the frequency, the region it applies to, because guess what? Different regions have different frequencies for these modes. Not all of them, and some of them share them and have others. So you could, but if let's say a new frequency, oh, we're not running FT8 on this frequency, we're running FT8 on that frequency, you can add and create a new frequency that will pull up when you hit this little bar here that shows the frequencies and the bands. You'll be able to pull up your frequency from this list. Okay, the colors, we talked about colors. You can pick what you want, what event to have what kind of color bar on it. It can really help, as you can see how fast these things spin by. If you're, let's say you're looking for a new zone, a new continent, one they haven't worked before, all these things, you can pick that out. So the red one, you want to leave there, that's your, if you see that one light up, that means they're calling you. And that should wake you up. Am I calling a message here? Greens or CQs in a message. So, but you could, as you see, you can click and unclick these as you like. Most of them are too much for me. When I get a chance, I usually unclick most of them there, because I don't really care if it's a new zone or this and that. I might want to care if it's DX or not, but I can tell that by the call sign, right? The call sign, by the way, it's not the first call sign, it's the second call sign. The second call sign is the sender in the format. So I can just look down the edge here and with the grid squares that are there, and I can see where they are. Okay, Now, advanced. Advanced was not in there originally when they made the program, but it's there now. And when that will let you do is some special stuff that are not necessary for most of the things that we do. But if you're running, remember, this thing is used for microwaves, it's used for meteor scatter, moon bounce. So they might want to change the bandwidth that receiver receives in. They might want to change the signal to noise. They may change the decoding, making it more aggressive or less aggressive. More aggressive, it takes more time to decode, and you may get more false or broken bad call signs because it's trying too hard for something that's not there. So, but most of the time, you're going to be interested in the advanced section for this place out of the bottom. Advanced special operating activities. Special operating activities. These were made for not only activities, but contests. Some were created specifically so you could contest with this. What's the big one? ARRL Field Day. You click Field Day and you can put your Field Day exchange out here, and it will send the Field Day exchange when the exchange occurs between the two stations. There's another one called Fox and Hound. That has another nickname called de-expedition mode. A de-expedition wants to be different than the other, off at frequency. It'll move you off frequency so you're not clobbering each other. And the exchange is different, and it's meant to be for them to be be able to handle multiple people at the same time that are calling them and answer multiple people. There's one for the North American VHF contest, Worldwide Digi contest, ARL Digi contest, ARL FT Roundup. All these have, and they will change. The exchanges will change over here depending on what the contest you're running in here.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might
Go ahead,
want to
Randy.
mention that when a person or a de-expedition is in a Fox and Hound mode, that the Hound, which is you and I, not the de-expedition guy, you need to be at least
you are the Hound.
1,000 hertz higher than their transmit frequency. Otherwise, they're not going to hear you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, as I said before, you should never, even in regular operation, I never answer on frequency. You know,
No,
it's,
that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying even if you're 900 hertz above them, they're not going to hear
right.
you. You got to be 1,000 above or more.
Right.
Carry on. Thank you.
Okay, so
Hey, Dave, we're running about
Yeah.
about a little more than an hour into this now.
okay,
Make a contact. Show us the red line.
okay. Well, I'm done. That's advance is the last thing on the list here. So we're still sitting here on 10 meters.
You need to
So-
take that out of hound mode, Dave.
In hound mode. Am I hound mode?
Good point.
Am I? It usually lights up here if it's in
Go
Fox
back to
hound
your
mode. doesn't it?
settings.
No,
That's
right down here though. Doesn't it? Don't you get a thing lit up here?
Before it goes, I
remember I never saved it. I clicked it, but I never saved it. If I did do that, let's go back, I'll show you. If I did that, see, there's no warning here. If I did that, and I put it in special mode, then I went in hound. If I hit OK, which I did not do, if I hit OK, then it would put me in that mode, and the hound would light up down below here. See that? So if you put yourself in a special mode, it tells you that when you go back to your regular mode. If you never clicked OK, then it didn't actually put you in that mode.
So now you can go back and do it.
Now I have to go back again and get rid of it. Get rid of special modes. And then it did OK again. And it's gone. Okay, as we were saying, we can look here for somebody. I can look for a fairly strong guy. See, that's what you look for. You look, their signal strengths. Now, there's no guarantee that your strength is going to be the same as theirs, but if a guy's a minus 25 and I'm sitting here with a vertical, I'm probably not going to get a exchange with him. But, as we look through across here, here's the actual time of each 15-second block. This is the dB of their signal strength. This is the time. Remember, we look to see, you could tell if everybody's about 100 milliseconds, 200 milliseconds from you, then you're pretty good on time. You'll see though, every once in a while, somebody will be way off and you'll know that they haven't had their time set or they're in a place where they're doing it manually. This frequency refers to the frequency that you can set it up different ways, but it refers to the frequency in hertz across the bottom. So if I see the station here at 509, 509 is this guy right here. So I know where he is. So that's the frequency across the bottom is the hertz. The message it's sent. This is my receive window. You only see it in the receive window if your call sign is in it or your receive umbrella. We have an upside down umbrella and a right side up umbrella. If he is near enough there, like here, he will decode and print it out if that receive umbrella is on there. So if I wanted to receive this guy right here, I could put my receive umbrella there and I would be receiving whatever he was sending in this window here. The red one is my transmit umbrella. Now, as I said before, I want to move that where other people are not. And you move that by hitting the shift key and then clicking the left click, and you can put him in some kind of nice quiet spot where he's not going to bother anybody. So I'm going to look over here for somebody. And also, by the way, if you get a call in, we'll show that when it happens. Let's look for somebody, another call here so we can get an answer. I'll look for DX, but I don't know if I'll, let's see. Well, let's just, as you can see, you see from before, these signals are starting to, some of them, depending on where they're from, they're starting to drop.
Hey, Dave, if you click CQ
Yeah.
only, you'll get rid of some of that extra stuff in there.
Yeah. So let's see,
It's all the way to the left in the middle.
no, I'm not trying to do that. Okay, I just put myself in a CQ, see if I can, that VK will come back or not. Now, while I'm doing it, see if I want to move, if I see somebody near me, I can move. Since I said I can do that. Now, here's the other thing that I do, hold TX frequency. Hold TX frequency means when you find your quiet spot, if you click on somebody to answer, you'll stay right where you were. If you don't have hold TX frequency and you click on somebody here, you will move to their frequency and be 0 beat with them. You don't necessarily want to do that because a lot of other people are going to be doing that. So if I always have this hold TX locked here, so I choose where I want to transmit at. Well, this guy calling him too. Matt, we want to see a contact, so I'll just look for a strong signal here, calling CQ. Wow. What's that guy running?
New Zealand, Dave.
What's that guy running? You see, this
Double
ZL
click that,
here is a
Dave.
+2. Is
Count
a +2. This ZL is a +2.
Double click that, Dave.
I did. I'm sending to him. +2. That's amazing.
How do we know you're sending to him, Dave?
I don't know. Let me check and see.
In the yellow there where it says transmit, it's given his call sign and then yours. So that means you've gone back to him.
Exactly. Right in that right side window.
Well, I looked at something else. I was looking to see if I had my ALC was still good. When you
He's
said, am I
right now,
transmitting that?
And somebody's already gotten back to him.
N2WM got back to him. Yeah, I heard signing. Maybe he'll.
That's
pick up.
okay. I can keep transmitting because maybe when he's done with him, he'll come to me because I'm not on his frequency. Remember? So I can just sit here, for example, and I can let it sit there for 10 or 15 minutes and see if sooner or later he might come back to me. And often they do. It's what happened. The ZL I worked this afternoon, it was several minutes before he got back to me because you don't hear all the people that are, or even see all the people that are calling him. And being over there, he's probably inundated with Japanese. Me on Guam for a while, I know that you can't try to call anywhere without getting 1,000 Japanese stations answering you. But if I don't get anything in a minute, I'll just move off somewhere else. Where is another one? Let's look this guy. South America usually answers. Here's a +3. See what I get.
It's quite common to have to just let it sit there and keep transmitting, and eventually the station will come back to you. Also, one of the exceptions, if there is no space, you can't find an open space, as a last minute desperation, you can call on that frequency. That's worked for me on occasions where I haven't been able to work the station. To actually call him on his frequency.
Dave, when you pick a transmit frequency on your waterfall clear spot, does it have to be on an even number like 14, 15, 15?
No. Anywhere in the bandwidth.
The waterfall is your friend. Finding that open spot, even if it's small, to try to squeeze in and constantly shifting makes a big difference in making contacts.
Yeah, this spot looks pretty good down here right now. Maybe I'll move.
Well, I've learned something. I thought it had to be every 50 kilohertz.
Oh, no.
Oh, any spot at all.
Look at the number. Look at the numbers in their frequencies in the frequency list here.
Okay, it's a free for all.
Anyway. So that's the name of the game. In a contest, they'll be coming back to you pretty quick, especially FT4. I don't know. Maybe I'm just old, but I need a logger. If I'm in a contest, like a field day, lots of times, yeah, it's quiet. There's nothing happening. Other times, it's coming in so fast, you can't even copy the signal fast enough. Type down the call sign fast enough.
that's one of the problems with FT4. They're moving so fast. If you don't click almost immediately, they're gone off the screen.
Doug,
it appears-
Doug can correct me, but or Dave can. I believe 2019 was the first field day that FT8 was allowed.
Right.
And, we didn't have the FT or the WSJT-X software integrated with the logging software. We were able to do that the year before last and last year, and we'll be doing it this year. So our digital stations, you won't have to be manually logging. It'll port that automatic log function in WSJT-X. It'll get ported right into the N1MM master log.
Now, I think I'm going to have to get some private lessons on how to make these things connect up to N1MM. Because I'm just, it's too thick to be able to make them talk to each other. There we go. There we go. NC4CC. I got DX. I got Canada. No, NC4CC. Well, I guess, but see, that won't do anything though. Even though he's calling me, I'm going to have to switch over to call him. Just double clicking on the line will put his call in the call box. If anybody's going to cheat, it's going to be Dave will cheat at it with me. And that's what it looks like when your call comes back, that turned red. They do their exchanges. Once that happens, I mean, you don't do anything. Once you click, double click, that's it. That's ham radio. And
Your guy from down in South America just got back to
yeah, he answered me. The guy from South America answered finally. See that? Give me my.
If you click on him, it'll switch you over to calling him and not
It will.
NC4CC. Yep. All you have to do if you want to
Right.
if you want to dump NC4CC and call the DX station, just
I already did.
click on it.
He's
Yep.
already dumped.
I resent that.
You must have been reading my mind. I was just going to walk into Shaq and give him a call.
But it takes a while. Like I say, it took a while for him to get the idea and come back. So, and like has been said, well, you can just click on the thing and then go along after your computer and start looking at the news or something else, or make a photo contact or two, and then you'll come back and see you've had a contact.
I envy Dave's setup. I wish I could do that, because this is the only way to really walk through. You've actually put the program on, show how it's set up. There are a lot of good videos on YouTube. Some of them are radio specific that walk you through a specific radio with recommendations and all the settings.
The problem with YouTube is, in all honesty, you really have to know what you're going to do and what you're going to try to do and what you accomplish and what's going to happen, because there's so many bad ones on there. When I say bad, I mean they're wrong, and they lead you astray, particularly for folks that don't know any better. And not that the people are trying to do that, but a lot of folks without a lot of experience, and they scrambled, got the thing together and said, "Oh, that's great, I got this. Let me do a video of it." And they really barely know what they're doing themselves. You listen to them, and you can tell that. I know somebody the other day. Here we go. Here's my my log. Now you see, it's all finished. It's completed. Just to the South American station. There's my log, 10 meters. I sent him a +6, he gave me a -15, that's fine with me. And all I have to do is, now he didn't have, he didn't send his grid. If I can find his grid somewhere. But that's not absolutely necessary. So that's why, remember that thing I checked that said, ask before logging? That this would pop up. If I didn't do that, this would automatically log and go in there and I'd never see it. So I can put this thing in here and I can make any comments, whatever I want to do in here, and then hit OK, and then it goes in the log.
He's FG71.
Yeah, now you tell me. Anyway,
Just popped up.
anyway, I swear, I talked to a new guy, and we've been hearing a lot of people, several these days, with the Roger beeps on the repeater. And some of you guys are too polite, but I'm not that polite. And I'm nice about it. I say, by the way, you're putting out a Roger beep, go into your menu, go down to the beep and click it off, turn it off. And most of them say, oh yeah, thanks. I didn't know that was doing it. Well, this one guy the other day said, oh, I looked at a YouTube on how to use my bow thing, and they told me to turn that on. So you don't always get the best information from a YouTube video.
I would agree, Dave.
Well, I logged my contacts, so I've done my spiel. I'm open for questions. I'd like to get a bunch of guys on a lot of these different digital modes just to play with them on, even on 6 meters like we do. If we can talk to each other on 6 meters, there isn't a digital mode that we can't use to play with on all around town and have perfect communication. One of these times we'd have one of these with FL Digi, and they can go through a bunch of modes and maybe even have somebody else out there set up on them so we can have some two ways. You really can't have two-way exchanges very well with FT8, but
That VE6, that guy's in Alberta if you need him.
I've gotten Alberta. I've gotten all of those frozen locations.
Hey, it's not frozen this time of year.
Even in the North Pole.
All right, Dave, any other questions?
Now, any other questions from the peanut gallery?
I got a question, Dave. If I wanted to send a personal message, I want to send a personal message to say I work K3FHP on FT8, and I want to say thanks again, Dave. How would I put that exchange, like a personalized, I've never learned how to do that.
Well, you go over here and change this from general message. You go down here on the bottom, you can change this message down here. And you can put something that you want in that box.
Couldn't you just put it in a different box and then select that box?
If you had done a macro, you could click on the arrow, and that macro would show up in that box. And then you could select that, and your special message would be right there. There you go.
Now, would you put this at the end of the QSO? I would imagine.
Yeah, but I mean, you could put it anywhere. You could go out of sequence instead of going to standard messages. You can. I mean, you can. It'll transmit next whatever is lit up here. So if you click that up and transmit next, that's what it should transmit.
Okay, thank you, Dave. I'll play with that.
But
what you have to do, though.
But if I want to send somebody a message, I'll use a different mode.
Yeah, what people are doing there is instead of where you have hijack, put in the guy's call sign and then your message of about 10 characters, and then transmit it, and he'll see it. It'll light up on his screen. But if you don't put his call sign there, it just goes out as a general broadcast and nobody will receive it.
Right.
Okay. So I guess
And once
I
you put-
put that.
And once you put his call sign in, you've used up half of your message. But
Very good. I appreciate that.
I mean, I mean, it's interesting. It's when it first came out, it was to me, yeah, it was real more interesting until JS8 came out, and then. But I guess I'm not in the competitive. How many lots of contacts you can make guy. I like to sit there, hunt around, and see what I can do and chat up. I get, like I said, JS8, you can get lots of some rag shoes here and there, and send messages to somebody and put them in their inbox and that kind of thing, which is a lot of fun. And it's the same sensitivity, and it has the same look and feel in many ways, but you get a lot of these directed message activities that can make it, I think, more fun, unless you're just out to make a contact with a lot of different places. And for newer folks, I think that's a good thrill, and I think it's good for them to do that. But then when you get tired of that, there are other things.
Very good. Hey, Craig, anything you want to add to this before we wrap it up?
Yeah, a couple things. I would emphasize that David touched in settings to check the PSK reporter to enable that. That is one of the most useful things. And I'm just kind of repeating what he said.
Let me go to that. Let me see if I can do that. Go ahead, Greg.
That does a lot of things for you. Number one, it will tell, and when I set mine up, I set it for heard by. In other words, I only set up for people that hear me, not just signals that I sent. Dave could show you that other spot there. But anyway, you can see what your signal strength is. You can see it, and it lights up graphically where propagation is. It's very useful, extremely useful, as well as just getting a general idea of what bands are active, what the conditions are. It's once you use it, it's almost addictive. I go to that every day before I do anything, just to run through the different bands on PSK Reporter and see what's going on.
This is part of the fun. Here's PSK Reporter, and I have it set for 10 meters, and I just hit go, and you can see where I've been heard over the last whatever time you set. There's 30 minutes to set there, and it tells you how many minutes ago you were heard there. And we were heard all the way from Australia, New Zealand. Well, we know he heard me because I worked him. And then you click on it, and the box comes up, and it tells you who they are, how far away they were, what your signal strength, I was at minus 7 dB over there in Canary Islands. So without even if you didn't work, if you just call a lot of CQs and nobody answered you, you can go to PSK Reporter and do this, and it would show you where you were actually heard, even though nobody answered you. They might have been answering other people. They might not have been at the radio. And you can see where you were heard and what your signal strength was. There's a couple in Hawaii. So during this time we were doing this, those are all the places we were heard.
It's a great way. It's a great way to check, because if you're not getting any callbacks, you may say, well, what's wrong? As Dave said, when you go to PSK Reporter, it confirms that you're being heard all over the place. As an aside, before I forget it, one of the first things to check, if all of a sudden you've been making contacts and you don't make contacts, first thing to check is your time setting. A couple of times I've lost it, and it takes a while before it catches, the clock gets off enough to make a difference. That's one of the first things.
And check your audio, your power setting, because for whatever reason, that gets bumped sometimes, and all of a sudden your power thing goes down. So just glance whenever you're transmitting at the ALC to make sure you're still. And I usually look at my power meters. I've got 2 power meters here, and I can see exactly what I'm putting out. And sometimes it just stops, and that's why you're not getting answered. But like Greg says, I have fun believe it or not, whether I actually work them or not. If I just get out there and put up the signal and I look and see where I'm heard and I look and see what the signal strength was, heck, I go out here and if I'm minus 12 in Hawaii, I guess my radio's working. So that's another way to look at it. Or what I'll do on, you can do it here, but I do it on FT8. I'll go here and I'll set this for all bands, not just 10 meters. And I'll go through and I'll do a pulse, which you could sit here and call CQ for a few shrines, and then go from band to band, from to 10, 12, 15, 20, 30, 40, 80. And then I go back here to PSK reporter, and it'll all show up across there where I was heard and what my signal strength was. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess in my old age, I'm thrilled by simpler things. But to me, rather than sitting there and struggling to get a contact, I get a lot of good information out of that. Then I might go back and change my power. I might go down to 5 watts then and do the same thing and see who heard me on 20 watts. They didn't hear me on 5 watts. And it's really entertaining.
Very good. I did put a few posts over in the chat group that has some links to it. This is the source for WSJT-X program. So if you're not familiar with where to get that, that was posted in the chat box. Also put in a couple of documents that Dave was referencing for PDF downloads. Somebody asked about the Maidenhead grid square. How do I find my grid square? Well, that's on the CARS website. We've got a link to that. I put the carsfl.org links, and then you just locate Maidenhead grid square link on that page, and it'll take you right to that. And I think the final piece that we had in there was a link to the PSK reporter site as well. So check out the chat box if you're looking for some of these links. They're in that box. Okay, I don't think if there's anything else, Dennis, we can probably stop the recording, and you'll save me from having to watch 8 hours of video to edit this thing down.